Welcome back to Smitty's Learning Room. Today we're going to have a look at the body in motion, and more specifically having a look at the aerobic and anaerobic training. So that we can develop an effective training program, it's really important to understand the correct energy pathway or body system that converts nutrients into energy. So when we look at these energy pathways, we're looking at the concept of the body's ability to convert nutrients. And when we talk about nutrients, we talk about oxygen and body fats. And obviously converting these nutrients to energy for exercise. So we have two different pathways that we can use to convert energy. We have the anaerobic pathway and the aerobic pathway. The anaerobic pathway provides our body with energy without the use of oxygen. So anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. The aerobic energy pathway uses oxygen to create energy. So basically aerobic means with oxygen. When we participate in activities with short, sharp movements, so for example throwing a shot put or jumping, we use the anaerobic pathway because we don't need oxygen to produce energy for that sort of exercise. When we do exercise for longer periods of time at a moderate intensity, we use the aerobic pathway to create energy. So therefore we need to use oxygen to develop energy to support the energy needs during this type of activity. The change between anaerobic and aerobic energy supplies is a gradual change rather than an instant or a very quick change. When engaged in physical activity, our body switches between both systems according to the intensity of our exercise. And one system is usually predominant while the other one's sort of always working in the background but not necessarily the main supply of energy. So for example, a marathon runner, while they predominantly use their aerobic energy system, at the start of their race to set off, they may use the anaerobic system for instant energy supplies. And once they settle in and get comfortable and start using the oxygen, they may then refer back to their anaerobic system to be able to surge past another athlete or to climb a hill. They may even need it for a sprint finish. But the predominant system working in place here would be the aerobic system. So we now know that the aerobic energy pathway uses oxygen to produce energy for our body to move. So we need to have a look at the concept of aerobic training and how do we train our body to improve our aerobic capacity. So we begin to use our aerobic energy pathway when we do exercise for more than 90 seconds at a moderate intensity. Once we start to do this, our body starts to use oxygen to create energy. We need oxygen to create energy so that we can keep getting our muscles to function and work in order to continue to exercise. To improve our aerobic fitness, we need to engage in activities that are for a long period of time. So for example, cross-country running, cycling, jogging, or consistent swimming are examples of activities that can develop our aerobic energy system. We also know that the anaerobic training system doesn't require oxygen for our body to move. So now we need to have a look at the concept of anaerobic training and how we can train to improve our anaerobic capacity. We use our anaerobic energy pathway for activities that are 2 minutes or less in duration. These are usually sprint or activities with high power efforts. Now, we know that this did not require oxygen. There's already energy stored in our muscle cells. When we go beyond that 2 minutes, our muscle cells run out of oxygen and our body starts to use oxygen to supply energy in order to move. This is why we increase our breathing rate to try and increase the supply of oxygen into our lungs, which can then be transferred to our blood system through to our muscles. To enhance our anaerobic capacity, we need to ensure that anaerobic exertion occurs during specialised training to allow the body to adapt for the necessary muscular work without oxygen. So if we train our anaerobic energy system, it enhances our ability for muscle cells to improve their use of stored fuel rather than oxygen for energy. It's important to understand that for a lot of anaerobic exercises, such as sprinting or swimming, we need to have an aerobic foundation or a fitness base is what we call it. For other activities which are really short in nature, such as diving or archery, they require minimal aerobic base. There are lots of different ways in which we can train our anaerobic energy system. However, some common ones are to ensure that we train at what we call race pace or closer competition speeds so that we can encourage the correct adaptations to occur. Interval training is another great way that we can train our anaerobic energy system, and that's by doing periods of intense work with short rest so that we're overloading our energy system before we actually require our body to use oxygen. So the next thing we have to look at is which energy system do we need to be training for which sports? It's important to understand that a quality training program or a well-trained athlete will encompass both aspects of anaerobic and aerobic training. As mentioned earlier, a good anaerobic training program will have an aerobic base, and athletes who use their aerobic energy system regular will need to have an aerobic training program in order to train the efficiency and power of their muscles. When we look at training programs for team sports, it's important to realise that different positions on the field may require different types of training. So for example, if you look at the sport netball, a mid-court player, so someone who covers quite a lot of the court, will probably have a heavy aerobic component of their training program as opposed to, say, a goal shooter or goalkeeper who isn't travelling as much around the court. Their training program may be more anaerobic based. Don't forget to check out the Smitty's Learning Room video on the FIT principle, which is an acronym for the frequency, intensity, time and type of training, and it embodies a fitness principle that ensures a program has the quantity and quality of movement necessary to produce desired physical improvement.